Help me save the airbenders. Then you can worry about saving me.
Who will protect us while she's in a wheelchair?
But that should be me out there fixing things, not her. I'm the worst avatar ever.
He chose to find meaning in his suffering, and eventually found peace.
And what am I going to find if I get through this?
I don't know, but won't it be interesting to find out?
It is often said that the road to hell is paved with good intentions. Sozin from Avatar: The Last Airbender is a prime example of this.
Our nation is enjoying an unprecedented time of peace and wealth. I've been thinking, we should share this prosperity with the rest of the world.
But these good intentions only led to 100 years of war. In Book 4 of The Legend of Korra, the Earth Kingdom finds itself in complete disarray, except for the city of Zaofu. Su Beifong is asked to unite her nation, to lead her people to a new age of peace and prosperity. The power of an entire nation is at her fingertips, but she declines the offer. As Toph's daughter, she knows exactly where such a road leads. But Kuvira doesn't. Su chooses to rise above warmongers like Sozin, while Kuvira chooses to become the next one.
Zaofu has always been a beacon of modern progress, and now you can share that with
The rest of the world.
Again, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. But these good intentions only reap suffering. Amon fought for equality but only brought about war. Unalaq wanted to free the spirits and in doing so nearly caused 10,000 years of darkness. Zahir wanted to free the common man, but by killing the Earth Queen he only managed to plunge the Earth Kingdom into chaos. And worse, he poisoned the Avatar, preventing her from being able to clean up his mess. So that brings us to Korra, confined to a wheelchair, unable to do anything for herself. If you've watched the show, you know that being the Avatar is central to her identity. She thrives in the role and only ever wants to use her powers in the service of others. Her actions in Book 3 proved her unwavering selflessness in the face of evil, so naturally, the cost of her sacrifice was her ability to help people. As she sits in a wheelchair for weeks watching Jinora and the other airbenders help people, the fact that she can't join them depresses her. The plethora of letters she receives from her friends from the South, detailing all their exciting adventures, doesn't help much either. Not only does Korra come to miss the thrill of adventure more and more, but she also fears that she isn't needed anymore. Even the chaotic Earth Kingdom is being dealt with by the seemingly trustworthy Kuvira. But Korra's problems are more than just physical. Even after spending months learning to walk again, she's hardly any better. She's traumatized by her past. Whether she's training, sleeping, or exercising, her near-death experience at the hands of Zahir haunts her, leaving her unable to heal. All this misfortune eventually leads her to lash out at Katara, who then urges her to find meaning in her suffering. So after over 2 years in the Southern Water Tribe, Korra, much like Toph once did, sets off on a journey of self-discovery. She needs to figure out why she's unable to fully recover, but in reality, she's just running from her past. So it manifests itself before her again and again and again, but each time she resists, until eventually Korra's soul-searching, or lack thereof, leads her to a woman who also left her friends and family in the hope of achieving balance.
I can't believe it. Toph?
Nice to see you again, Twinkle Toes.
Voiced to perfection by the late Phyllis Sampler, Toph gives Korra the Toph love she's desperately in need of. After spending the entire day beating her up, Toph points out that the problem might be the bits of poison still inside Korra. When Toph tries to remove it though, Korra resists. Toph reminds Korra of the good intentions behind her enemy's actions, stating that their lack of balance is what led to their corruption, and now Korra's as well. Korra's imbalance, she says, is due to 3 things. 1, her fear of getting hurt again. 2, the poison still inside of her. And 3, Korra's distance from her loved ones. Do note that each of these problems corresponds with a different aspect of her being, her mind, body, and spirit respectively. Toph then takes her to the banyan grove tree, the branches of which spread out for miles. Through this tree, Toph is able to see what her daughters are doing, even though she's thousands of miles away. Clearly, this is the perfect way for Korra to reconnect with her friends, who she has not seen for 3 years at this point. She felt unworthy, unable to keep up, unfit to serve the world alongside them. She thought that the only way to change things was to do it alone, but now she knows the truth. She needs the world just as much as the world needs her. So she connects to the banyan grove tree and senses the airbender kids nearby. After Ikki, Milo, and Janora's hilarious journey in which they too learned the value of others, they find Korra and excitedly fly down to her. The beautiful score by Jeremy Zuckerman swells as Korra looks up at them, overjoyed at the sight. Tears begin to stream down Korra's face as they land, and she greets the trio with a loving embrace. One of the 3 obstacles in the way of Korra's recovery has now been destroyed, in arguably the most beautiful and moving scene of the entire series. But this is far from a social call. They set out to find Korra because Kuvira is no longer serving Prince Wu and has instead declared herself the ruler of the Earth Kingdom. And with Zaofu, Su Beifeng's home, being the only state left for her to occupy, time is short. Knowing this, Korra resolves to remove the poison from her body, which she does while Jeremy Zuckerman's beautiful score once again plays. Korra then leaves with the Airbender kids on a mission to stop Kuvira from attacking Zaofu. After failing to make peace between the two sides, Korra faces off against Kuvira. Yet to remaster her bending, Korra struggles greatly in this fight. Kuvira, once Su Beifeng's right-hand woman, is one of the most talented metalbenders alive, so naturally in her current state, Korra is no match for Kuvira. That is, until she enters the Avatar state. The momentum of the fight completely shifts here. Korra's with her friends, she's no longer hindered by the poison lurking in her bloodstream. After spending years trying to get back in the fight, she is now dominating it. Kuvira lays helpless on the ground while Korra triumphantly raises herself up into the sky. She lifts up a boulder, ready to stop Kuvira's takeover of the Earth Kingdom dead in its tracks. But just before she can strike the finishing blow, she sees her past self. Recall that Korra had problems concerning her mind, body, and spirit, but only dealt with 2 of them. Unfortunately for Zaofu, Korra's mental illness, her post-traumatic stress, still remains. So just as before, Korra is unable to achieve victory because she remains unbalanced. Kuvira takes advantage of Korra's imbalance and wins the fight. Luckily though, Janora and Opal manage to rescue Korra from Kuvira's forces and they escape. So while Kuvira and her armies celebrate the reunification of their country, Korra returns to her public city, haunted by her past and humbled by her embarrassing defeat. Little does Korra know, though, that Kuvira's true ambitions are far from realized. Much like Sozin, Kuvira plans to expand and crush anyone that gets in her way, even her own friends. Over the past 3 years, Bolin and Varric have been employed by Kuvira in her quest to reunite the Earth Kingdom. Bolin's desire to help the suffering commoners led him to overlook Kuvira's more questionable methods, as well as Varric's assignment to create a spirit-powered superweapon. Varric's growing conscience eventually led him to stop the project until Kuvira threatened to kill him unless he resumed his work. As Bolin's friends and family continued to advise him against working for Kuvira, the same sense of duty that convinced him to work for her also led him to desert her. So while Korra tried to save Zaofu from Kuvira, Bolin, Varric, and Zhu Li fled the scene, only for Varric to get himself captured due to his lack of combat skills. So the trio were sent back to Kuvira, who forced Varric to resume his work on the project, again. Unfortunately for him though, his lack of appreciation for Zhu Li led her to betray him.
When I met you, I realized I was wrong. Compared to you, Varric's a fool.
Hey, come on, I'm right here.
Rise, Julie. I'll give you another chance.
Think about what you're doing. We're partners.
Guards, do the thing.
No! Not the thing! Julie!
Varric and Zhu Li's relationship was a perfect blend of hilarious and wholesome ever since book 2, so her betrayal here was truly heartbreaking. Definitely one of the top 10 anime betrayals of all time, up there with Wilson leaving Tom Hanks alone at sea. But now there is a new opening for the job of Varric's assistant. Varric volunteers Bolin, who he plans to commit suicide with in order to keep Kuvira from developing her superweapon. Luckily for Varric though, Bolin has a better idea, a little something called not dying, so the two escape the Earth Kingdom. Meanwhile, Mako has been protecting the true heir to the Earth Kingdom's throne, the insufferable Prince Wu, while Asami has been struggling to reconcile with her father. After spending years in prison thinking over his actions from back in book 1, Sato has come to deeply regret turning on his daughter and wants nothing more than to regain her love. There's a running theme here if you haven't noticed, but I'll get to that a bit later. For now, let's return to Korra's story. Now in Republic City, following her defeat to Kuvira, Korra realizes that she has lost the trust once afforded to her by world leaders. They trust her so little, in fact, that President Raiko and Tenzin opted to invite the idiotic Prince Wu to their emergency meeting over her. So naturally, when worldwide celebrity Napoleon Dynamite is kidnapped by the Spirit Vines, Korra is desperate to win back the President's trust, and more importantly, that of her old mentor. At first, she tries to put the Vines to spiritual sleep, and when that fails, she attempts to enter the spirit world. Again, Korra's PTSD resurfaces, and her fear of Zahir prevents her from entering the spirit world. She then decides that the only way to save Napoleon is to face her fears head-on, so after convincing the reluctant Tenzin to let her do so, she pays Zahir a visit.
I will no longer be scared of you.
You still seem scared.
Zahir, a regular visitor to the spirit world, is aware that Korra is unable to go there. He shows her that her surroundings aren't keeping her from entering the spirit world, but that she is. Korra denies this and instead blames Zahir for her misfortune.
My problem is you. You poisoned me. You ruined me.
Blaming me as a crutch to make you feel better is not helping you recover.
Korra laments that she may never get back to how she was before meeting Zahir, which he points out is her problem. Earlier in the season, Toph told Korra to learn from her past enemies and use those experiences to grow as an individual. But rather than learn from her past, Korra simply wants to forget it ever happened, and go back to the way things were. Zahir offers to help her overcome her fears, given that they both wish to stop Kuvira. Korra, with nobody left to turn to, opens herself up to his guidance, finally allowing herself to learn from her past enemy and overcome her fear of him. The two then depart, a sense of peace filling their final scene together. At last, all three roadblocks obstructing Korra's recovery have been removed. Her mind, body, and spirit are now all at peace, and Korra herself is finally balanced. With her 3 years of suffering finally at an end, Korra is now ready to face Kuvira, not at her lowest point, but at her highest. Earlier in the season though, Katara urged Korra to find a meaning in her suffering, something she has yet to do. So what is the point of all this? What is the meaning of suffering? Well, remember how I mentioned earlier that the other character arcs had a common theme? Korra's too shares this theme. Understanding the hardships of others. Just take a look at the development of the side characters. Varric's near-death experience with his spirit superweapon led him to better understand the pain such a weapon could inflict. His compassion for his fellow man fueled his willingness to sacrifice himself to save others. Bolin's compassionate nature may have led him to overlook Kuvira's faults for some time, but he was also responsible for his eventual desertion of her army alongside Varric. Without his sense of compassion, the refugees would have certainly been caught by Kuvira's forces, and thus Republic City would never have been warned about the spirit weapon in time. Mako's compassionate treatment of Wu during the lowest point of the prince's life eventually inspired Wu to grow from being a selfish coward to a selfless leader. At the end, he actually dissolves the monarchy and sets up a democracy. Asami too serves this theme. Her compassion for her father following his heartfelt apology eventually led to the rejuvenation of their father-daughter relationship. Thanks to Asami's pity for her father, Sato comes through at the last minute, sacrificing himself so that Korra and her friends, Benders, could put a stop to Kuvira. Compassion is clearly a major character motivation this season, for everyone except Kuvira. While people like Korra and friends had family at their side their entire lives, Kuvira was abandoned by hers. When she saw the awful state her nation was in following Zahir's assassination of the queen, she decided she had to act. Sue refused, and Korra was nowhere to be found. So if Kuvira didn't rise to the occasion, her people would have been abandoned just as she once was. Kuvira's cause is truly a selfless one, but her dedication to the mission robs her of the very selflessness driving it. This can be seen when, following the capture of her fiancé, she willingly fires upon him hoping to kill Korra. Kuvira's imbalance, much like it did the other villains before her, leads to her defeat. But just before the spirit weapon kills her, Korra steps in the way and saves her life. Because Korra, thanks to her struggles this season, understands what Kuvira is going through. Kuvira is desperately trying to keep her country and herself from being vulnerable, a feeling Korra is more than accustomed to at this point. And thanks to this understanding, Korra is able to talk Kuvira down.
I was cast aside by my own parents like I meant nothing to them. How could I just stand by and watch the same thing happen to my nation?
I may not have been an orphan, but believe me, I understand what it feels like to be afraid. After I was poisoned, I would have done anything to feel in control.
Kuvira then surrenders, allowing for a peaceful end to this conflict, and she even apologizes to Sue for everything she did. Much like Korra, by overcoming our hardships, we can better understand the suffering of those around us. And through this understanding, we become capable of treating others compassionately. That is the meaning of suffering. It is the only way through which we can become compassionate. Whether it be between two people or the entire world, compassion is the one thing capable of ridding the world of the suffering born in conflict. It's the only thing capable of attaining lasting peace.
If you look for the light, you can often find it. But if you look for the dark, that is all you will ever see.
The Legend of Korra, much like other sequel series, is to this day in its predecessor's shadow. And this isn't entirely without cause. Book 1 may have started strong, but it fell apart at the end. Book 2 tried to develop Korra in a spiritually centered story, but all it managed to do was make Korra a jerk. At the same time though, Book 3 was a quality season of television. And Book 4, well, it did something I thought impossible. It made up for the show's past sins. Book 4 broke Korra down much like Book 1 did, but instead of magically getting better this time around, Korra had to build herself back up from scratch, physically, mentally, and spiritually. Rather than acting entirely different than she did in the rest of the series, her actions here were consistent with her personality. Her struggles were both understandable and relatable, allowing the scenes where she overcame them to be genuinely moving. The scene where Ikki, Milo, and Jinora found Korra in the swamp actually brought me to tears. The Legend of Korra will never reach the critical acclaim of its predecessor, but it shouldn't have to. At the end of the day, it is a very enjoyable television series. Its first half has some serious flaws, sure, but much like Korra does in Book 4, the show learns from its past and becomes all the better for it. It's one of few cartoons to effectively portray mental illnesses like depression and PTSD. And not only did it do real-life victims of these illnesses justice, but it also offered them, and all of us for that matter, hope for a brighter tomorrow. And with the show's creators now running an entire studio dedicated to telling more stories about the Avatar universe, just imagine how much brighter tomorrow will be. Before I end this video, I just want to thank everyone for making it this far. Whether you watched the entire series or just this video, I'm so glad that you enjoyed my content. I doubt that I will make another video on The Legend of Korra, but I do plan to start another video series on Avatar: The Last Airbender. I also plan to do one on Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood. Let me know in the comments which one you'd like to see first. I'd also like to announce that with college starting back up, I doubt I will be able to maintain my weekly release schedule. So unfortunately, for the next couple months, I'll probably only upload every other week. I'm really sorry for this decrease in the content. Like, I really do enjoy making these. I'm really bummed that I won't be able to make as many or spend as much time doing it. But I promise you that I will continue to put 100% effort into everything I do make. So anyways, that's about all I gotta say. Thank you again for watching. Please be sure to like and subscribe. Have a good day, and I'll see you in 2 weeks.